Welcome to Insurance Talk Texas, brought to you by Schell Insurance Agency, North Texas's #1 business and personal lines insurance agency for the past 100 years. Call us today at 972-423-4546 for a quote, or visit us at schellinsurance.com. That's SCHELL insurance.com. Now, here's your hosts. Welcome back to Insurance Talk Texas. I'm here with my co-hosts to discuss something we've been researching that could help Plano business owners avoid some really expensive mistakes.
Yeah, and what we found is pretty surprising. Most business owners in Plano are getting these generic insurance policies that completely ignore where they're actually operating in the city.
Right. We've been looking at data from Schell Insurance, and they've been in Plano since the 1930s. So they've got over 90 years of watching what works and what doesn't when it comes to location-based coverage.
So what makes location such a big deal for business insurance in Plano?
Well, Plano's not really one market anymore. A restaurant down in the Arts District is dealing with completely different risks than, say, a tech company at Legacy West or a contractor working near Plano Parkway. But most people end up with the same generic policy regardless.
That's interesting. What kind of differences are we talking about?
Here's a good example. When those North Texas storms roll through, they hit everybody, right? But an older building in Central Plano is going to handle hail and ice totally differently than new construction up north. Same storm, but the outcomes can be drastically different depending on the building materials, the roof, even which power grid you're on.
I wouldn't have thought about the power grid angle. What about the different commercial areas? Legacy West seems like a whole different world from downtown.
It really is. Central Plano and the Arts District get a lot of foot traffic, community events, which is great for business, but creates liability issues. Plus, those historic buildings come with their own problems, aging infrastructure, code compliance issues.
So you're looking at more slip and fall risks, building problems. What kind of coverage actually makes sense there?
You need solid general liability for all that public interaction. Property coverage that takes into account the age of the building and potential code upgrades. Business interruption that covers utility failures. The folks at Schell Insurance, that's schellinsurance.com, that's SCHELL insurance.com, they see these claims come through all the time.
What about those premium areas like Legacy West?
Completely different animal. West Plano's Premium Corridor, Legacy West, Willow Bend, Preston Road, you're talking corporate headquarters, high-end operations. The risks there are cyber incidents with customer data, professional liability claims, and employment disputes in a really competitive hiring market.
The cyber risk has to be huge there. I keep reading about how cyber insurance is becoming essential.
It is. Current data shows cyber insurance runs about $1,500 a year for small businesses in the Frisco-Plano area. That sounds like a lot until you realize hackers target small businesses 3 times more often because they typically have weaker security.
What does Texas law say about data breaches?
Texas requires businesses to notify residents about security breaches. The costs add up fast. Notification costs, legal fees, fines. Cyber liability insurance covers those expenses, and without it, you could be looking at costs that seriously damage your business.
What about the newer areas of Plano? Those must have their own issues.
They do. North Plano's growth areas, Russell Creek, Ridgeview Ranch, the areas near Frisco, they've got newer construction, but that brings underinsurance problems. Property values have gone up significantly, so coverage based on what you originally paid might not cover what it would actually cost to rebuild.
So you might think you're covered, but you're really not.
Exactly. That's where local expertise comes in. The team at Schell Insurance, that's schellinsurance.com, they understand current construction costs versus what people originally paid. You can reach them at 972-423-4546. They catch these gaps before they become problems.
What about the corporate corridors, Plano Parkway, and those big office developments?
Those bring sophisticated cyber attacks on data-heavy operations, major property losses in expensive tenant improvements, business interruptions when shared infrastructure fails. You need enterprise-level protection with proper additional insured provisions for complex contracts.
This really shows how different each area is. What are the basics that every Plano business needs?
General liability covers customer injuries and basic business risks, pretty much essential if you deal with the public. Commercial property protects your building, improvements, equipment, inventory. In North Texas, your wind and hail deductible can make or break you on a claim.
What about workers' comp? I heard Texas is different.
Texas is one of only 2 states where workers' comp is optional. But here's the thing. Without it, you lose legal protection against employee injury lawsuits. If you have government contracts, it's required.
So, optional but probably not smart to skip it.
Right. Commercial auto is required for business vehicles, $30,000 per person, $60,000 per accident for injuries, plus $25,000 for property damage.
What about professional liability and umbrella coverage?
Professional liability covers errors and omissions in your services, really important for consultants and contractors. Umbrella coverage gives you extra liability limits above your other policies. Landlords and clients are requiring it more and more, especially in the premium locations.
What kind of mistakes do you see Plano business owners making?
The biggest one is assuming identical coverage performs the same way everywhere. Insurance that works great for a business in one part of Plano might leave another business completely exposed, even if they're in the same industry.
So what should business owners look for in an insurance partner?
Contract and lease review before you sign anything. A lot of insurance requirements look fine until you actually have a claim and the technical language matters. Having someone like the Schell Insurance team review agreements up front saves you expensive problems later.
What about when you actually need to file a claim?
That's where local relationships matter. Claims advocacy during losses makes the difference between smooth settlements and drawn-out disputes. Local agents with carrier relationships can speed up processing, coordinate repairs, keep small problems from becoming big ones.
Sounds like the relationship is as important as the policy itself.
It is. And you need regular coverage updates as your business changes. Growing businesses often outgrow their initial coverage without realizing it. Annual reviews catch those issues before they cost you.
What about costs? That's always a concern.
General liability runs $83 to $120 monthly for small Texas businesses with a couple employees. That's pretty reasonable for what you get.
What drives the cost differences?
Location affects pricing. Austin versus Lubbock, you're going to see different rates. But industry risk is the big factor. High-risk businesses like contractors and manufacturers need specialized coverage that cost more.
For someone evaluating their current coverage, what should they check?
Property limits based on current construction costs, not what you originally paid. Wind and hail deductibles that you can actually handle if you get hit. Business interruption that accounts for realistic recovery times, including supply chain delays.
What about lease and contract requirements?
You've got to verify compliance regularly as requirements change and policies renew. Small technical issues can create major legal problems. That's another area where Schell Insurance's expertise at 972-423-4546 really helps their clients.
There seem to be a lot of details most people wouldn't think about.
Certificate management, umbrella limits that match your actual contract requirements instead of just minimums. There's a lot that can trip you up.
What's the main takeaway for Plano business owners?
Insurance that looks the same on paper can perform totally differently based on where and how you operate. You can get cheap quotes online, but you can't get local insight into what actually works in your specific Plano location.
Why does that local expertise matter so much?
After nearly 100 years here, understanding neighborhood risk patterns, what landlords require, contractor relationships, how claims actually get processed, that takes time and local experience. The team at Schellinsurance.com, that's Schellinsurance.com, they focus on protection that actually works when you need it.
How can someone get that kind of location-specific review?
Call 972-423-4546 to talk about coverage that makes sense for where you actually operate. They also do lease and contract reviews to make sure you're compliant before you sign something that could cause problems.
Good advice. Handle it before it becomes a problem. That's another episode of Insurance Talk Texas. Thanks for listening.
Remember, where you operate matters more than you might think for business insurance. We'll see you next time with more practical insights for Texas business owners. Thanks for listening. Be sure to visit our sponsor, Schell Insurance, for all of your business, homeowners, and auto insurance needs. Call them at 972-423-4546 for a quote, or visit their website at schellinsurance.com. That's SCHELL insurance.com. See you next time.